Xi Jinping did not appear on the world stage overnight. His journey to the top was a carefully managed process, one that began long before he became China's paramount leader. He was often called a Red Crown Prince, a term used for the children of high-ranking Communist Party officials. His father, Xi Zhongxun, was a revolutionary veteran, which gave Xi Jinping a special status within the party's elite circles. This background provided him with connections and an understanding of the inner workings of Chinese politics that few others possessed. His early career was marked by a deliberate and steady climb through provincial leadership roles where he built a reputation for being pragmatic and cautious, avoiding any major political missteps while quietly consolidating his support base. His promotion to the Politburo Standing Committee in 2007 was the clearest sign that he was being groomed for the highest office. This elite group of 7 men makes all the most important decisions in China, and his entry marked him as the heir apparent to the then leader, Hu Jintao. The following year, in 2008, he was appointed Vice President of the People's Republic of China. This position was not just symbolic. It gave him a formal role in state affairs and international diplomacy. It was a crucial training ground, allowing him to interact with world leaders and gain experience in governance at the national level, all under the watchful eye of the party elders who had chosen him for this path. During this 5-year period as the designated successor, Xi cultivated a low-key public persona. He did not make bold pronouncements or push for dramatic reforms, which could have alienated powerful conservative factions within the party. Instead, he focused on themes that resonated deeply with the party's core identity: discipline, stability, and unity. He spoke frequently about the need to strengthen the Communist Party from within, warning against the dangers of corruption and ideological weakness. This conservative stance reassured the party establishment that he was a safe pair of hands, someone who would protect the system rather than challenge it, ensuring the continuity of one-party rule in a rapidly changing China. His princeling status gave him an air of authority, but it was his calculated political maneuvering that secured his ascent. He understood that in the complex world of Chinese elite politics, appearing too ambitious too early could be fatal. He played his role as the loyal deputy perfectly, showing deference to the existing leadership while methodically building his own network of allies across the country. By the time the leadership transition was scheduled to occur, he had successfully presented himself as the only candidate capable of uniting the different factions of the party and leading China into its next chapter. His rise was a masterclass in patience, strategy, and the unique dynamics of power within the Chinese Communist Party. A critical part of Xi Jinping's strategy to consolidate power involved gaining firm control over the People's Liberation Army, China's massive military force. After being appointed vice chairman of the Central Military Commission in 2010, he began to immerse himself in military affairs. This was a position of immense strategic importance, as the party has always held to the principle that the party commands the gun. Xi used this role to build personal relationships with senior generals and to understand the inner workings of the armed forces. He knew that without the unwavering loyalty of the military, no leader could truly secure their position at the top of the Chinese political system, a lesson learned from China's long history. While other potential leaders might have focused on economic or social reforms, Xi prioritized party discipline above all else. He was a staunch opponent of any moves toward Western-style liberal democracy, which he viewed as a grave threat to China's stability and the party's authority. He repeatedly emphasized the need for ideological purity and strict adherence to the party line, winning favor with the more conservative and nationalist elements of the leadership. This focus on discipline was not just about words, it was about reasserting the Communist Party's absolute control over every aspect of Chinese society, from the economy to the classroom, a theme that would become central to his rule. His approach was a deliberate departure from the more open discussions of political reform that had occasionally surfaced in previous decades. Xi made it clear that China would not follow the path of the Soviet Union, which he believed collapsed due to a lack of ideological conviction and a failure to maintain discipline within its ruling party. He saw corruption and political disloyalty as two sides of the same coin, both weakening the party from within. His speeches during this period were filled with warnings about the dangers of moral decay and the need for officials to be true believers in the socialist cause, laying the groundwork for the intense anti-corruption campaign he would later launch. By focusing on the military and party discipline, Xi positioned himself as a strong leader capable of tackling what he saw as existential threats to the regime. He built an image as someone who could restore the party's revolutionary spirit and ensure its survival for generations to come. This resonated with many in the establishment who were worried about growing social inequality, corruption, and the influence of foreign ideas. He was not just preparing to lead the state, he was preparing to fortify the party itself, making it clear that his leadership would be defined by strength, control, and an unwavering commitment to the Communist Party's central role in China. As vice president, Xi Jinping was entrusted with overseeing some of China's most significant national projects, which served as perfect opportunities to build his public profile and demonstrate his administrative capabilities. One of his most high-profile assignments was to lead the preparations for the 2008 Beijing Olympics. This was a monumental event for China, a moment to showcase its modern achievements and growing confidence to the entire world. The success of the Games was seen as a national triumph, and Xi, as the man in charge, earned considerable credit for the smooth execution of such a complex and globally scrutinized event. It proved he could handle immense pressure and deliver results on a grand scale. 2 years later, he was given a similar responsibility, coordinating the 2010 Shanghai World Expo. This was another massive undertaking, attracting millions of visitors from around the globe and further cementing China's image as a rising power. The expo was designed to highlight China's innovations in technology, urban planning, and culture. By successfully managing this event, Xi once again demonstrated his competence as a leader who could manage vast, intricate projects that were crucial to the nation's prestige. These assignments were not just administrative tasks, they were political tests, and he passed them with flying colors, enhancing his reputation both at home and abroad as a capable and reliable statesman. These high-visibility roles allowed him to step out from behind the scenes and become a more familiar face to the Chinese public and the international community. He was no longer just a red-crowned prince known for his family background. He was now seen as a hands-on leader associated with some of China's proudest modern moments. His involvement in these events helped craft a public image of a leader who was both deeply connected to the party's legacy and forward-looking, ready to guide China's engagement with the rest of the world. This careful image management was crucial in a political system where public perception, even when tightly controlled, plays a role in legitimizing leadership. Beyond these domestic showcases, his role as vice president also involved extensive diplomatic travel. He journeyed across continents meeting with heads of state and business leaders from North America to Latin America, Africa, and Europe. These trips were essential for building personal relationships with his future counterparts on the world stage. They also gave him a deeper understanding of global affairs and how China was perceived internationally. By the time he was ready to take the top leadership position, he had already established a network of international contacts and a solid foundation in foreign policy, preparing him to lead a country with increasingly global ambitions and responsibilities. The culmination of Xi Jinping's carefully orchestrated rise occurred between November 2012 and March 2013. At the 18th Party Congress in November 2012, he was officially elected to the most powerful position in China, General Secretary of the Communist Party of China. This role made him the head of the ruling party, giving him ultimate authority over its ideology, organization, and direction. On the same day, in a move that signaled a swift consolidation of power, he was also named chairman of the Central Military Commission. This immediate control over the armed forces broke with the recent precedent, where the outgoing leader would retain the military chairmanship for a transitional period. This consolidation of power was completed in March 2013, when the National People's Congress, China's legislature, formally elected him as the President of the People's Republic of China. This third role is the head of state, representing China on the world stage and handling formal state functions. By holding all three titles, General Secretary of the Party, Chairman of the CMC and President of the State, Xi secured what is often called the Triple Crown of Chinese leadership. This trinity of power meant he had complete control over the three pillars of the Chinese system: the party, the military, and the government, an institutional arrangement that made him unequivocally the paramount leader. His ascent marked a significant shift in leadership style. His predecessors, Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao, had operated within a system of collective leadership, where power was shared among the members of the Politburo Standing Committee. This model was designed to prevent the rise of a single dominant figure reminiscent of Mao Zedong. However, from the very beginning of his tenure, Xi signaled that he intended to move away from this consensus-based model. His decisive and assertive actions, particularly in securing immediate control of the military, made it clear that he envisioned a more centralized form of leadership with himself at the very center. The transition was remarkably smooth, a testament to the years of preparation, and the consensus that had been built among party elites that a stronger, more decisive leader was needed to navigate China's growing challenges. These challenges included rampant corruption, slowing economic growth, and increasing social tensions. The party establishment saw in Xi a figure with the political will and lineage to tackle these problems head-on. His swift assumption of all three key posts was not just a personal victory, it was a signal to the entire country and the world that a new era of more assertive and centralized Chinese leadership had begun. Immediately after taking power, Xi Jinping launched what would become the most extensive and relentless anti-corruption campaign in the history of the People's Republic of China. He famously declared that he would target both tigers and flies, meaning he would go after high-ranking, powerful officials as well as low-level bureaucrats. This campaign was not just a policy initiative, it became a defining feature of his rule. The scale was honestly staggering. Millions of officials were investigated, and hundreds of thousands were punished for bribery, embezzlement, and other abuses of power. The campaign sent shockwaves through the entire political and economic system, creating a climate of fear and caution among officials at all levels. The campaign was immensely popular with the general public, who had grown increasingly frustrated with widespread official corruption. It helped Xi build a reputation as a strong and righteous leader determined to clean up the party and serve the people. However, the campaign also served a crucial political purpose. It became a powerful tool for eliminating his political rivals and consolidating his authority. Many of the tigers who were taken down were powerful figures who could have potentially challenged his leadership, including former Politburo Standing Committee member Zhou Yongkang and rising political star Bo Xilai. Their downfall broke an unwritten rule that top leaders were immune from prosecution, demonstrating Xi's resolve. By targeting powerful figures with their own extensive networks of patronage, Xi was able to dismantle competing power centers within the party. The anti-corruption drive was not random, it was strategic. It allowed him to remove officials who were not fully loyal to him and replace them with his own allies and protégés. This process systematically reshaped the political landscape, ensuring that key positions in the government, the military, and state-owned enterprises were filled by people who owed their careers to him. In this way, the fight against corruption was also a fight to centralize power and enforce absolute loyalty to his leadership. The long-term effect of this campaign was the creation of a more disciplined, albeit fearful, bureaucracy. The culture of lavish spending and overt graft that had been common was significantly curtailed. However, critics argue that it also led to a kind of political paralysis, as some officials became too afraid to make decisions, worried that any action could later be used against them in an investigation. Regardless of the motives or the consequences, the anti-corruption storm was a masterstroke of political strategy. It simultaneously addressed a genuine public grievance, fortified his own power, and reasserted the party's authority over its members in the most dramatic fashion possible. One of Xi Jinping's most significant transformations of Chinese politics was his dismantling of the collective leadership model that had been in place for decades. This system, established after the turmoil of the Mao era, was designed to prevent any single individual from accumulating too much power by distributing decision-making among the members of the Politburo Standing Committee. Xi, however, saw this model as inefficient and, honestly, prone to factionalism and gridlock. He believed that to address China's complex challenges, a more decisive and unified leadership structure was necessary. He quickly moved to establish himself as the undisputed core of the party leadership. To achieve this centralization, Xi created and took personal command of a series of new leading small groups and commissions. These bodies were designed to oversee all of the most critical policy areas, including national security, cybersecurity, economic reform, and foreign affairs. By placing himself at the head of these groups, He effectively bypassed the existing government ministries and required that all major decisions receive his personal approval. This structural change fundamentally altered the flow of power in Beijing, concentrating it directly in his hands and away from the State Council and other government bodies. He became, in effect, the chairman of everything that mattered. The title of Corps Leader, or Lingshu Hexen, was officially bestowed upon him in 2016, a designation that carried immense symbolic weight. It was a title previously used for powerful figures like Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping, and it signaled a formal break from the more consensus-driven leadership style of his immediate predecessors. Being the core meant that his authority was paramount, and all other members of the leadership were expected to rally around him and his vision. This was reinforced by a constant drumbeat in state media, which promoted his personal authority and urged absolute loyalty from all party members, creating a personality cult not seen in China for decades. This shift toward personalized rule was a deliberate effort to make the Chinese political system more effective and responsive to his agenda. From Xi's perspective, a single, strong leader was better equipped to push through difficult reforms, combat entrenched interests, and steer the country with a clear, long-term vision. While this centralization may have increased efficiency in implementing his policies, it also raised concerns both inside and outside China. Critics worried that it eliminated checks and balances, stifled policy debate, and created risks by tying the fate of the nation so closely to the decisions and judgment of one individual. To provide a theoretical foundation for his powerful rule and his vision for China, Xi Jinping introduced his own political ideology. Officially known as Xi Jinping Thought on Socialism with Chinese Characteristics for a New Era, this body of ideas was formally enshrined in the Communist Party's constitution in 2017. This was a monumental honor, placing him on the same ideological level as Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. While other leaders had their theories added to the constitution after they retired, Xi achieved this while still in power, a clear demonstration of his supreme authority and his ambition to leave a lasting legacy on the nation's guiding principles. The core tenets of Xi Jinping thought emphasize the absolute and unwavering leadership of the Communist Party over all aspects of life in China. It calls for strengthening party discipline, promoting national pride and cultural confidence, and achieving what he calls the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. It also sets out a roadmap for China to become a global leader in technology, economic strength, and military power by the middle of the 21st century. The ideology serves as both a political blueprint and a tool to institutionalize his personal authority, making his ideas the mandatory guiding principles for all party members and for the country as a whole. In the economic realm, Xi Jinping thought signals a shift in priorities. While still focused on growth, it places greater emphasis on high-quality development, which includes technological self-reliance, environmental protection, and reducing economic inequality. This is where policies like common prosperity come into play. This initiative aims to narrow the vast wealth gap that has emerged in China by regulating excessive incomes and encouraging corporations and wealthy individuals to give back more to society. It represents a move to rebalance the relationship between the state and the private sector, with the party taking a more direct role in steering the economy to achieve social goals. The introduction and promotion of Xi Jinping thought have had a profound impact on Chinese society. It is now a mandatory subject in schools and universities, from primary school pupils to PhD students. Officials are required to study it intensely, and it forms the basis of civil service examinations. This nationwide ideological campaign is designed to unify the thinking of the entire population around Xi's vision, ensuring that his ideas will shape China's development long into the future. It is a clear statement that China will follow its own path, guided by its own ideology, with Xi Jinping as its principal architect and guide. In a move that stunned observers both inside and outside China, the country's leadership framework was fundamentally altered in March 2018. The National People's Congress, China's largely rubber-stamp parliament, voted almost unanimously to remove the two-term limit for the presidency from the state constitution. This rule had been put in place by Deng Xiaoping in the 1980s to prevent a repeat of the lifelong chaotic rule of Mao Zedong, and to ensure regular, predictable leadership transitions. The abolition of this limit effectively paved the way for Xi Jinping to remain in power indefinitely, potentially for the rest of his life, breaking with the established norms of the post-Mao era. This constitutional amendment was the clearest signal yet of Xi's immense power and his intention to see his long-term vision for China through to completion. The official justification was that aligning the term limits of the presidency with his other two more powerful roles, party general secretary and military chairman, which have no term limits, was necessary for stability and continuity. However, the move was widely interpreted as a consolidation of personal power, moving China away from an institutionalized system of governance and back toward a model of personalized rule centered on a single, dominant leader who stands above the system. The decision also had a profound impact on China's political future by dismantling the established succession process. For decades, a successor was typically identified and groomed during a leader's second term, ensuring a smooth and orderly transfer of power. By removing term limits, Xi has created a climate of uncertainty about who, if anyone, will eventually follow him. No clear heir apparent has been designated, and the political system is now structured entirely around his continued leadership. This has raised concerns about the potential for instability or a power struggle in the future when a transition eventually becomes necessary. By breaking these established rules, Xi has rewritten the playbook for Chinese leadership. He has discarded the Deng-era norms designed to constrain the power of the top leader, such as the informal retirement age and the collective decision-making process. His leadership is no longer bound by the predictable, 10-year cycle that had defined Chinese politics for a generation. This change ensures that his policies and his vision will dominate China's trajectory for the foreseeable future, but it also leaves the country entering uncharted territory, with its long-term political stability resting more heavily on the shoulders of one man than at any time since Mao. Under Xi Jinping's leadership, China has pursued a far more assertive and ambitious foreign policy, driven by his overarching vision of the Chinese dream, the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. This dream involves restoring China to what he sees as its rightful place as a central power on the world stage. No longer content with Deng Xiaoping's strategy of hiding its strength and biding its time, China under Xi is actively seeking to shape the global order to better suit its interests. This has been most visibly demonstrated through massive international projects, most notably the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, a colossal infrastructure and investment plan spanning continents. The Belt and Road Initiative is a cornerstone of Xi's foreign policy. It involves China funding and building roads, ports, railways, and power plants in countries across Asia, Africa, and Europe, creating a modern-day Silk Road. While promoted as a project for global economic cooperation and shared prosperity, it also serves to expand China's economic and political influence, create new markets for its goods, and secure vital trade routes. This initiative has made China a crucial partner for many developing nations, but it has also drawn criticism from Western countries, who view it as a tool for creating debt dependency and advancing Beijing's strategic goals. Alongside this economic outreach, China's diplomacy has become much more confrontational, a style often described as wolf warrior diplomacy. Chinese diplomats have become more aggressive in defending the country's interests, and pushing back against criticism on issues like human rights, Taiwan, and the South China Sea. This assertive stance reflects a newfound confidence and a belief that China should no longer passively accept a global system dominated by the United States and its allies. Xi has called for China to take a more active role in global governance, proposing its own solutions to international problems, and building alliances with countries that share its vision of a multipolar world. While Xi has faced challenges, including an economic slowdown, tensions with the United States, and international criticism over his policies, he remains firmly in control. He has successfully positioned himself as a transformative leader, a figure who is not only redefining China's domestic politics, but also its role in the world. His vision of the Chinese dream is not just about national prosperity, it is about projecting Chinese power and values globally. Through his strategic initiatives and bold diplomacy, Xi Jinping has set China on a new course, one that is fundamentally reshaping the geopolitical landscape of the 21st century.